By Detective Comics number 353 in July of 1966, Robin started uttering Burt Ray's classic catchphrase, "Holy whatever, Batman," and then in a truly meta moment in Batman number 183 of August of 1966, its cover showed Batman staying home instead of fighting crime so he could watch his own TV show. All this peaked with the Batman movie, which premiered on July 30th of 1966, making a decent $1.7 million at the box office, $13 million today, which wasn't a bad haul for what was essentially a TV movie. However, the biggest, most longest-lasting effect it had in the comics was the invention of Batgirl. As fast as Batman the TV show succeeded, it was fading just as fast. Thus, William Dozier suggested the comics created a young female character to attract new fans, even suggesting she be Commissioner Gordon's daughter. Thus, in Detective Comics number 359 by Gardner Fox and Carmen Infantino, Batgirl / Commissioner Barbara Gordon made her debut and would later appear in the TV show played by Yvonne Craig. Nevertheless, this wasn't enough to save the show, which aired its last episode in March of 1968. Amazingly, after just over 2 years, it had made 120 episodes and a movie, and has since gained more fondness with fans. While not the true Batman many identify, it is now recognized as a fun show that, for a brief period, was one of the biggest pop culture events in history. Don't be surprised if you attend a comic book convention with a parade, and you see an Adam West Batman running around with a fake bomb, the classic scene from the movie. While Kane hated the show, it did allow him to cut a better deal with National for money. However, it was at this time that Bill Finger finally spoke up about his own involvement with Batman, which led to Kane to viciously blast him in the media, calling him a liar. Finger, never wanting to start a fight even when he had good cause, backed down and would later die at the age of 59 on January 18, 1974. It will be decades later before he would finally be acknowledged fully for his work on Batman. With the show gone, Batman's sales quickly declined as a distaste for the show affected them as they maintained the style of it, all except one. At The Brave and the Bold, a team-up comic book in which Batman was paired with various DC superheroes, editor Murray Bolinoff hired Bob Haney and artist Neil Adams to take over the series. It was considered to be one of the minor books of DC, but Adams had a different idea. When he drew Batman, he made him darker, more Bat-like. And even when Haney wrote a scene that was set in daytime, Adams would always set it at night. Of course, it helped that Neil Adams was a brilliant artist whose realistic style set a new standard for the genre. But it wasn't long before fans noticed, and Brave and the Bold was selling better than the Detective Comics. Meanwhile, in Batman number 217 of December of 1969, another significant event happened when Bruce Wayne finally sent Dick Grayson off to college. Man, they age slow in comic books. To Hudson University, and moved out of Wayne Manor himself to downtown Gotham City. He decided to merge his roles as Batman and Bruce Wayne, as Wayne would now use his foundation to help victims of violent crime while Batman fought the criminal establishment. Then, on January of 1970, Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams were brought onto the main Batman comics and proceeded to emphasize his detective skills while making it more obsessive and scary, beginning with Detective Comics number 395 in the classic story The Secret of the Waiting Graves. In Detective Comics number 400 of June of 1970, Man-Bat was introduced, adding a horror element to his villains. And then in Detective Comics number 405 of December of 1970, the League of Assassins was introduced, hinting at another classic villain, Ra's al Ghul, who would finally fully appear in Batman number 232 in June of 1971. Soon, in Batman's number 242 to 245, Batman fought Al Ghul in a globe-trotting adventure. His other villains got a makeover as well, as Two-Face was made to have a split personality in Batman number 234 in July of 1970. And then the Clown Prince of Crime himself, the Joker, returned in all his glory in Batman number 251 of September of 1973. Once again, the homicidal maniac he was originally conceived. However, O'Neil added a new element that made him a true villain of Batman, as he was now completely insane and unpredictable. Thus, the world's greatest detectives couldn't even figure him out. It was this that finally made Joker Batman's true opposite and chief villain. In Batman number 258 of October of 1974, Arkham Asylum was finally reintroduced, and then to further expand the mythos, a new character was created with ties back to his origin, Leslie Thompson, the social worker who found a young Bruce Wayne when his parents were murdered in Crime Alley. Still living in the area, it was revealed in Detective Comics number 457 of March of 1976 by artist Dick Giordano that Batman still visits the place of his parents' death where they were killed every year with Miss Thompson on the anniversary. as a reminder of why he does what he does. Meanwhile, DC continued to find ways to expand the merchandising of Batman and his various characters, with Superman Friends, the TV show, appearing. A campier, more kid-friendly approach to the characters, it ran off and on from 1973 to 86, and nevertheless led to an explosion of merchandise sales, while reaching far more kids than their comics did. This led to the New Adventures of Batman, which ran from February 12th to May of 28th of 1977 for 16 episodes, in which Adam West and Burt Ward provided the voices, along with Batmite, who was first appeared in Detective Comics number 267 of May of 1959, a well-meaning imp from the dimension Ergo who considered himself Batman's biggest fan. The actors also briefly reappeared in their live-action form in the Legends of Superheroes special on the NBC, which aired of January 18th and the 25th of 1979, keeping up their Sunday persona. Back at the comics, Steve Englehart, Terry Austin, and Marshall Lauders had a successful run in Detective Comics, number 469 to 475 in May of 1979, which not only introduced his new regular girlfriend, Silver St. John, but also one of his most iconic stories with the laughing fish. The Joker poisons Gotham City's water supply with his Joker gas, creating smiling fish. Then in classic Joker fashion, he tries to have the fish patented, only to go after the patent office when he can't because, well, he's the Joker. Despite all this, Detective Comics was nearly canceled after issue number 480, till in 1979, new editor Paul Levitz brought on Len Wein to help revamp the series. His most notable addition was the creation of Lucius Fox, the executive who Bruce Wayne would put in charge of running Wayne Enterprises on a daily basis, thus giving him time to be a vigilante. He not only served the job of explaining how Bruce Wayne was able to be Batman and run a billion-dollar company, but also introduced the first regular black character to the Batman universe. That realistic move aside, Batman still fought more colorful villains like Crazy Quilt and Kite Man, while working with Paul Levitz to create the Batman Bible, which set up the continuity for the character. Meanwhile, Robin finally rebelled from his former superhero team and formed his own with the new Teen Titans on November of 1980 by Marv Wolfman and George Perez, with fellow young heroes Wonder Girl, Kid Flash, Cyborg, Starfire, and the Raven. Soon, Dick Grayson would dump the Robin persona altogether, becoming Nightwing in Tales of the Teen Titans number 44 in July of 1984. With his young ward gone, Batman became moodier, and thus a new Robin was created with Jason Todd, first appearing in Batman number 357 of March 1983, before taking up the mantle in Batman number 368 in February of 1984. Strangely, his origin was nearly exactly the same as Dick Grayson's, down to being from a circus family, at least until a certain crisis in DC comic books happened, but more on that later. Nevertheless, Batman still needed a breakthrough, and that finally came in 1986 with Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. Having been lured away from Marvel to DC with the promise to produce his Ronin miniseries in 1984, he then turned his attention to DC's iconic character. He originally pitched up a revamp years ago with Steve Gerber, along with a Superman and Wonder Woman revamp as well, which were to be titled The Man of Steel and Amazon, respectively. While they were turned down at first, he finally got a chance to do his Batman for Adults series, creating what he called a God of Vengeance, the Dark Knight, who returns to the cowl in his 50s after being retired for 20 years. One of the things that made the story so iconic is that the story is actually set in 1986, with the implication that this is the Batman for the 1960s version. This Batman was a vigilante fighting the establishment, complete with a new Robin, Carrie Kelly. The run was so popular it made the mainstream media like the Rolling Stone and LA Herald Examiner, and when it released, was on the New York Times bestseller list for 38 weeks. To date, it is considered one of the best, if not the best, Batman stories ever, and certainly one of the most iconic. However, Frank Miller wasn't through with Batman just yet. After the Crisis of Infinite Earths, while revamping the whole DC's comic line, every character was due a reboot, so Frank Miller teamed with his Daredevil Born-Again artist David Mazzucchelli on Batman Year One and Batman number 404 to 407 of February and May of 1987. Retelling not only the origin of Batman but also Commissioner Gordon, who comes to Gotham City as a young police lieutenant as they both team up to fight crime and corruption. The story is a contrast to present day, as Gordon initially hates Batman, who he sees as a dangerous vigilante, until the corruption of the Gotham PD makes him realize his need. Plus, Batman is shown making mistakes and near misses, slowly learning to become a superhero, while setting his sights on the corrupt establishment. Nearly universally acclaimed, the one negative is that Catwoman Selena Kyle is reimagined as a former prostitute dominatrix. As great as the story was, it was not something that would sit well with the fans, and like all things, will eventually see a retcon. Meanwhile, the Joker got his own origin reboot, or just an origin in general, with Batman the Killing Joke of March of 1988 by Alan Moore and Brian Boland. Switching back and forth between the past, where a person who we believe to be the Joker gets caught up in a criminal scheme when his pregnant wife dies, while in the present, the Joker hatches a plan to make Commissioner Gordon insane. To do so, he invades an apartment, shooting and paralyzing his daughter Barbara Gordon, who he then undresses and takes naked pictures of her. Then, a captured Gordon is taken to a sadistic funhouse where he is forced to view the said pictures, only to be rescued by Batman. Despite these horrors, Gordon gets one of his most truly iconic moments when he tells Batman to bring in the Joker by the book. Batman eventually captures him, but in their final confrontation, it is left up to the readers to decide if the Dark Knight finally kills him. However, this is taken away from the readers when this story, originally conceived in an Elseworld comic, when it was first incorporated into the regular canon because it was considered so good, with Batgirl now becoming the wheelchair-bound hero Oracle. All of this, along with Merrill's run on Daredevil and Alan Moore's Watchmen, led to the grim and gritty era of comics, with multiple stories and violent storytelling that eventually went overboard. Like many imitations of the great works, they missed the point of the fact that Dark Knight Returns and The Watchmen appealed to fans because they were mature and intelligent, not just because they were violent. Even Batman got up in this craze with Batman the Cult, a 1988 miniseries by Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightson, in which Batman is kidnapped, tortured, and brainwashed by a sadistic cult. The Crisis of Infinite Earths by DC also brought along a revamp for Jason Todd as well, who in Batman number 408 of June of 1987, writer Max Allan Collins of Dick Tracy fame reimagined him now as a kid that Batman found trying to steal his wheels off the Batmobile. Now a sullen, almost vengeful teen, in Batman number 424, it strongly implied he pushed a rapist off the building to his death. Fans hated this new Robin, which led to the Death in the Family storyline in Batman number 427 of November of 1988, in which fans were given the choice to vote whether Jason Todd lived or died by the Joker's hands. Ultimately, the fans voted for his death, and he died in Batman number 428. Of interesting note, this does line up with The Dark Knight Returns, who stated that Robin did die. However, the biggest news for Batman came when he finally made his jump to the big screen. While Batman had starred in movie serials and even an overblown TV movie from the Batman show, he had yet to make his full-blown feature debut. The first steps began in 1979 when Michael Uslan secured the rights and crafted a screenplay that he returned him to his grim and gritty roots. However, he had a hard time getting any studio to make it, as the memory of the Adam West Batman show still lingered, apparently unaware of his serious turn into comic books. Finally, in 1981, he signed with Warner Brothers and producers Peter Gerber and John Peters, but as a result, he was quickly sidelined by them. They hired Tom Mankiewicz of Superman fame to rewrite the script, making it more comic. They then set out to find a director, trying everyone from Joe Dante to Richard Donner, who was interested but too busy making Lady Hawk, and he ended up stealing Mankiewicz back for his own movie. Finally, they found Tim Burton, if only to help further develop the script, but later got him the directing job as well. He added the Joker killing Bruce Wayne's parents, while paring down the origin story, and having the story start when Batman's already in full force. Goober and Peters then hired Sam Hamm to give a pass to the script, who was inspired by The Dark Knight Returns, something that made them realize that Batman can be dark and serious, while adding the characters of mob boss Carl Grissom and love interest Vicky Vale. Throughout it all, the Joker was always meant to be the villain, and only one person was everyone's choice, including Bob Kane's, and that was Jack Nicholson. However, the Oscar-winning legend would not come cheap, and he signed on for $6 million up front and a percentage of gross merchandise. It would prove to be a brilliant deal. With all that in place, all that was required was, cast Batman. Of all the actors, Michael Keaton was cast, something that the fans and both Michael Uslan and Bob Kane hated, going so far as to criticize his lack of a strong chin, since that would be the most prominent feature when he wears the costume. Kane was quickly mollified, however, when he was hired as a consultant on the film, and then went on to work consoling fans about Keaton, along with getting extra money on the side with portraits of Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, which were probably ghost-painted. The man knew how to make a buck. Finally, Warren Sharon was brought on to do a final polish to the script, in which he let Vicky Vale live, but added a controversial scene in which